Sometimes Forex trading is a wild and woolly place to be. That's why Hugh's here, to pose your questions to Walter, the naked Forex guy. Hugh's got questions, and Walter's got the answers. Here at the Truth About FX podcast.
Hey Walter, how do I use fundamental analysis to determine the future or expected interest rate changes by central banks?
Well, I'm really more of a technical trader. That's what I'll say about that. But here's what you can do. You can play off of the expectations. And I think that's what most fundamental traders do, is they play off expectations. So for example, as we're recording this, yesterday I was doing a webinar with some traders, and we were like 13 minutes away from some major news in the United Kingdom. Okay. And what was happening on the chart was, the chart was a really bullish chart on the pound. I was looking at the pound $1, and I said, I don't know what she's going to say. It was the Prime Minister, Theresa May, and she was going to make an announcement. Okay. And so I said, I don't know what she's going to say. And I'll post this video for those of you that are interested in this. I'll post it in the show notes so you can see what I'm talking about. But it was a very bullish pattern on the 1 hour chart. And I said, I don't know what she's going to say, but my guess is it's going to be bullish for the pound. And the only reason I say that is because I see a bullish pattern here. Now, nobody knew what she was going to say except for a few probably speechwriters or whatever. And the pound was actually kind of doing like a fake out move where it was going down and then wobbling around and getting really volatile on the back of her announcement, which was 13 minutes away at the time of the recording of the webinar. And so, or at least at the time that we were looking at the chart. And so what ended up happening is she said, we're going to have a surprise election. She called an election, and that wasn't really expected at all. And the pound took off, okay, like massively. As I'm sure you saw the charts last night too, or this morning or whatever. Yeah, it took off. So it popped. Now, what's interesting about that isn't really that the fundamental news drove it. But to me, what's interesting about that is that you could see the bullish pattern on the chart long before she opened her mouth. And because the market was kind of sending it down, I've noticed this a lot, that, when you see these really crazy news releases, sometimes what you'll see is if the market's really going strongly in one way, it's going to rebound and go the other way when the news actually comes out. So I don't really think there's any secret sauce to trading fundamentally. At least I haven't figured it out, and I'm not really interested anyway. But I would say this: if you're going to pay attention to the news, I would pay attention to surprise news. And that's really the only type of news that I've been able to trade, which is where everyone expects one thing and it ends up being completely different. That gives you a chance for you to get in on something kind of cool, and that's the extent of it. I also sent out an email to people, which was kind of tongue in cheek, but it was a real trade idea, where we were looking at 3 different markets. I think it was the Singapore dollar, gold, and the Mexican peso against the USD. Mexican peso against the USD, Singapore dollar against the USD, and gold against the USD. And this was in advance of the election that Trump surprised and won. And I said, look, it doesn't really matter if Trump wins or loses, but he's got to make it close. And if he makes it close, there's going to be trades on the Singapore dollar, on gold, and on the Mexican peso. And that ended up being the case. The worst trade of the 3 was the gold, because it happened so quickly and it bounced so hard. But the Singapore dollar, I held that for a couple weeks. The Mexican peso also took off. So they were both really good trades. The gold trade was kind of quick and may or may not have worked out for people. But the point is, that's how I view fundamental analysis, and that's probably the easiest way for most technical traders to trade it, is just look for that surprise. And if there is a surprise, then jump on it, because the market's kind of caught off guard. And it's kind of like a breakout trade. So if you're familiar with breakout trading, that's kind of what you get when you get news surprise. So that's really my only recommendation. If you're interested in fundamental analysis, I would definitely check out those people who are really good at it. So Abe Kaufness, Jarrett Davies, Wayne McDowell, all of those people are really good at that style of trading. And I would look into any of those guys and follow their stuff if that's something that really calls to you. But to me, I'm more of a chartist, and that's kind of how I just see the naked charts and I trade off of that. But hopefully that's a helpful answer anyway.
So how much of a follow through do these moves have after unexpected news?
Yeah, you nailed it. That's the $2 million question. Really, so the way that I do it typically typically is I'll do this. I will trade it as a breakout on a 5-minute candle. So if I'm waiting for the news to happen, then I'll see. The election with Trump and Clinton was a little bit different because that was like an ongoing thing and it was slowly kind of unfolding. And most news, and I took the trade early. I saw kind of a kangaroo tail on the Singapore dollar and I was in, and so I got in on that a little bit early, but that's because it was an unfolding thing and it was clear that she wasn't going to walk away with the election. You know what I mean? And as that started to become clear, I said, okay, it's time to take a trade. So it was before they called it. You know what I mean? And again, that whole thing was a little bit different because it was like, look, I don't care if Trump wins, but I do care if he makes it close, because if he makes it close, it's going to shake people, and that's basically what happened. So now with the news, like where the, non-farm payroll or interest rate announcement, surprise, data comes out and everyone's shocked that it went in the other direction or whatever. Well, what you can do with that is you use 5-minute candle as a breakout. That's how I do it. Now, to answer your question, I look to do two things. I look to slap a trailing exit on it, and I look to a really far away target. So yeah, and if I'm on a Friday trade, then sometimes what I'll do is because I notice that the last 2 to 3 hours of the day, like from about 2 to 3 p.m. New York time, the market will often retrace the strong move of Friday. If there is a strong move, I'll look to get out then. That's kind of my goal. But if it goes really far in your direction and you can handle the wide spread that you're going to get over the weekend, how you get that wide spread on Monday and stuff or Sunday, depending on where you are, when it fires up again. If you can handle that because you're so much in profit, then a trailing exit makes sense. So to answer your question, I don't really have an answer to know how much follow through, but I usually have a target, and then I usually use a trailing exit to kind of just lock it in if it's going to really go. So that's how I approach it. Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's a super helpful tip. Thanks, Walter.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for the question.